We're going to continue our exploration into the 12 disciples of Christ this week. Last week we talked about who? Anybody remember? He's such a forgettable character. James the Less. Nothing was written about him, right? Nothing, no action, nothing. So James the Less we talked about last week, and this week we're going to talk about somebody we actually have some stuff written about. John. Everybody knows John, right? From the inner circle. We know John and James were brothers. They were the son of Zebedee. They were fishermen by trade. We know that Andrew and Peter and James and John were in the fishing business before they were called up. They were also disciples of John the Baptist. Followed John the Baptist before they began to follow Christ. You know, some of that background information. Some scholars believe that actually John and James were first cousins of Jesus based on the fact that in 3 of the Gospels they talk about Mary Magdalene, and a third woman being at the cross. And one says it's the sister of Mary, and one says it is the mother of James and John, and one says that it is a I forget. Yeah, but anyway, 2 of the 3 actually infer that they may be cousins. So the scholars, a lot of scholars think that they may have been actually first cousins on Mary's side. So whether that's true or not, speculation. We do know that John was part of the inner circle, right? The inner circle that consisted of James, John, and Peter. Disciples that were a little bit closer than the rest. You know, we see Jesus pulling them aside several times at the Mount of Transfiguration. Remember that? When he goes and he heals, later on when he's healing earlier when he's healing the ruler's daughter, he takes those 3 disciples with him. And even when we get into the garden on the night that he was being betrayed, you know, he and the disciples had gone into the garden, but he takes James, John, and Peter further with him into the garden and shares time. He says he shares time where he's grieved and he's agitated. You know, and I guess that's really where you want your closest people, right? You know, around you in those times that are really strenuous. You know, you have your friends, then you have your friends, right? People who you're really close to. And he calls those 3, that inner circle as they're known, Peter, James, and John. Now, there's more to that story. We also know that John was very close. If we look at the Last Supper, we see that John is seated next to Christ in the place of honor. So we know that him and Jesus are close, right? We know he's sitting next to, because Peter ask him who's the one to be betrayed. Well, John wouldn't know, but he would know because he could ask Jesus who was sitting right next to him in that place of honor. So that's how we know, right? We know where John was actually sitting at that particular meal. The disciple John went on to write what we know is the book of John, the Gospel. He went to John 1, John 2, and John 3, and the book of Revelation are all believed to be authored by the disciple of John. That's a lot of writing. And in that, he talks a lot about love. And actually, in the book of John, he describes himself as the disciple that Jesus loved. The beloved disciple, if you would. That's a good title to have, right? Who wouldn't want to be that disciple? The disciple that Jesus loved. I'll take that one. It's better than James the Less, right? You know, I want the disciple Jesus loved. So we know they were very close. And he does write his books on love, which is kind of strange when you first meet John in the scriptures, because John is kind of a different character than one that reflects a lot of love. When you see the early readings of him, accounts of him in the scriptures, The first, one of the scriptures we read comes in where he has met a man who is casting out demons in Jesus' name. And John tells him, don't do it. You stop right now and don't do it again. Don't you be casting out demons in Jesus' name. He's a little bit, what I would call narrow-minded. He believed that if it wasn't, you weren't part of that inner circle, those close disciples, and maybe you shouldn't be doing it at all. He's very proud of himself. As a matter of fact, he runs to tell Jesus, well, Jesus, you know what? There's a guy over there, he was casting out demons in your name. Don't worry, I stopped it. I got this, Jesus. I told him, don't do it no more. What do you think Jesus told him? This is what he told him. Mark 9, 39 and 40, he said, do not stop him, Jesus said. For one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment say anything bad about me. For whoever is not against me is for us. Jesus tells him, no, you don't get it. It's not about that. You know, how many of us in today's churches are narrow-minded like that? They don't do it right, they're wrong. Have you been to that church? They do that whole hand thing. Are they raising their hand? Praise God. You see, they got them antennas going. You know, when they say, that can't be right. That can't be right. They got drums in their sanctuary. Have you seen that? Who? The devil put that there. The devil himself. Or they believe this. I don't believe that. Or they believe this, and I don't believe that. Why do you think we have so many denominations? Because we're narrow-minded. We think it's one way, our way, right? Our interpretation. Well, I can tell you it's okay if they have a drum there. I don't think God minds. I think He enjoys the music. God made the drum too. People objected when they brought a piano into the sanctuary for the first time, and an organ. They didn't like that either. It's different. It's out of their comfort zone. And I understand that. We are comfortable in how we worship, right? We like it, right? If I start screaming and yelling, running back and forth, some of y'all head for the door, so he's lost his mind. You know, but in some churches, that's perfectly normal. That's how the preacher acts. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just how they worship. Right? That's what Jesus said. It's okay. As long as they're praising me, as long as they're glorifying God, it's okay. We like to be so divided. I have to laugh sometimes. You know, we also know that James and John, well, in Mark, at least in the Mark version, James and John go to Jesus and want places high up in His kingdom, right? In Matthew, it's actually his mother who goes, but whether his mother goes or they go, John was ambitious. He was a climber, right? He wanted to be recognized. He wanted to be at the top. Or at least he wanted to be at the top of a short list. He couldn't be the top guy, right? We see that in our churches today. People want to be, I want to board. Well, that's good. I'm on the property committee. Well, that's good. I don't see that so much here in this church, but I've seen it in other churches. I'm on the property. Well, that's good. I got the key to the church. Really? Wow. I don't even have the key to the church. I mean, does it matter? I laugh. I mean, I think it's fine. Because it doesn't matter if you're on the board. It doesn't matter if you have a key to the church. It don't matter if you make the bulletins, or play the piano, or sing in the choir, or clean up afterwards, or prepare communion. We're all working for the same thing, aren't we? We're trying to bring people to Christ. We're trying to glorify our God. We're trying to worship. So all those things are nice. I mean, it's nice that you serve those capacities, but it's not about who can get to the top spot. It's not about that. Remember last week we talked about Jesus said what? The first will be last. That's right. It's about serving, not about how to glorify yourself. It's about glorifying God, right? So John didn't have it. Didn't quite get it. He wasn't real, at first wasn't really in tune to what Jesus was talking about. Another thing we saw in John is that there's a story of when Jesus was going, he was going to have to go through Samaria. Now, Jewish people and Samaritans, they didn't get along. They weren't best buds or not friendly neighbors, or it wasn't good. But Jesus decides he's going through there anyway. And he sends word ahead that he's coming through and asks for them to prepare to be open their homes and to be hospitable to them. Well, when they get there, just the opposite occurs. They close their doors. They're not having none of it. We're not going to be hospitable. And so Jesus and his disciples, they just pass on through. Well, John didn't like that. As a matter of fact, you might say John had a bit of a temper. And John tells him, he asks Jesus, Luke 9, verse 54, he says, when the disciples James and John saw this, they asked, Lord, do you want us to call fire down from heaven and destroy them? Not like, should we talk bad about them? Let's just destroy them. They were rude, we're going to destroy them. We're going to call down fire, we're going to kill them. He wanted to be judge and jury and executioner all in one. You say, all right. That's a little bit of an anger issue, wouldn't you say? When someone's rude to you, what you want to do is kill them. Do you not see something wrong with that picture? Am I in danger here? This is not the way we're supposed to treat people. Jesus tells them, no. He rebukes them again. No, that's not the way we do business. That's not what we're about. Let them be. How many of us today, somebody makes us mad, we're ready to, angry. Woo! I get mad. Somebody cuts me off. Gets in front of me in that line. What? Are you serious? Little things, silly things. People are rude. We just get so angry, we let them own us, right? Because anger owns you. When you let anger in, it just owns you. We make them mad. Jesus said, no, that's not what it's about. That's not what it's about. Why do you think Jesus even called John? He had all these problems. Jesus, obviously, he knows each of us. He had to know John was narrow-minded, had some anger issues going on there, ambitious. Why do you think he even called him? There had to be somebody else out there. Why do you think I think Jesus saw a diamond in the rough, right? He knew there was potential in there. Because John had other things going too. If you coach in a summer basketball league and a 13-year-old walks in there and he's almost 7 foot tall, he's got potential. Now, he may not be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, but he's 7 foot tall. He's got potential to play basketball, right? John wasn't ready when he got picked up, when Jesus called him, but Jesus worked on him. And Jesus taught him, and he showed him what it was really all about. He taught him about what it was to love people. So much so that John would go on and would write some of the best love literature in the New Testament. You only need to go to or turn on your TV to any sporting event. Sometime during that sporting event, you're going to see somebody holding up a sign that says what? 3:16. That's right, 3:16. Always. And what does that mean? John 3:16. What does John 3:16 say? Because I know, you probably all know that. For God so loved the world that he sent his only Son. Whosoever believeth in him shall not perish. That's right.
For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved.
Might be saved. That's right. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son. For God so loved the world. Isn't it good to be loved? Aren't you part of the world? That's what it's about. John went on to write, even John 13, a lot of places done, John 13, 34, 35 says, a new commandment I give you is that you love one another. By this, others will know you are my disciples, that you love one another. So it's about love. That's what the whole thing's about. It's about God's love. Now I'm going to ask Jimmy for some expert advice here. And Jimmy, I have a house.
Sell it.
I've been trying. You know what the real and we've got a wire, and it's hooked up to the box, that panel box in the garage, and I need to attach a receptacle to that wire. What's the first thing I should do?
Cut the power off.
Why is that?
Because I usually do it about twice a day, so I cut the power off.
Cut the power off. Why? Because you'll get shot, right? You're going to get shot. The reason I say that is this. I want you to picture God's love is kind of like, just like that. God's that power box in the garage. He's the source of our power. We're like the wire. We're connected to God. We're supposed to be an extension of God's love. So anybody who touches us or we come in contact with experiences that love, so to speak, can get electrocuted, right? Or get shocked, or get filled with electricity, or get filled with love. You see, love is that current that gets us going. It's what powers us and what powers other people. And we're supposed to be that extension of God's love. He tells us right there, he says, love one another. A new command I give you, love one another. And they're going to know you're my disciple if you love one another. How do we know that we follow Christ? Because we love one another. It's not complicated. In John 15, it says, I give you a new commandment that you love one another. Greater love has no one that he lays down his life for his friends. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? That's a strong kind of love. That's God's love. Isn't it something that he chose you? He chose you special. He had you in mind. He loves you that much. You know, I said, who wants that title, to be loved, to be the beloved disciple? You are beloved. You are that beloved disciple. You are the one he hung on the cross for. Each and every one of you, without exception. You're the one. You know, I always want to be the disciple. I think it's great to be the favorite, right? Don't you want to be the favorite? Everybody likes being the favorite. I like being the favorite. My girls used to fight about being, who's your favorite, Dad? Who's your favorite? I mean, today it still goes on when they get together. I'm the favorite. I'm the favorite. I'm the favorite. I was first. I don't care. I'm the favorite. And it's cute. It's funny. It's flattering actually, but it's. Don't you want to be the favorite? Don't you want to be at the top of the list? Don't you want to be the one who's beloved? Well, you are. You are the one who's beloved. You are the one that God loved. That's hard to come to grips with, isn't it? It's hard to grasp, to put that picture in your mind. I'm the one. I used to always tell Myra, tell Pam, I'm God's favorite. I'm God's favorite. And she said, whatever. And I kept saying, I am. I'm his favorite. If I said, how do you figure you're God's favorite? I said, he died on the cross for me. She said, he died on the cross for everybody.
Yes.
And I just smiled and said, exactly. But me too. Me too. You too. You are his beloved. You are his baby. You know, if you really want to picture what love is, close your eyes and picture Christ died on the cross for you. That's what real love is. And God loved you that much that he sent his only son to die for you. And that's what John preaches. That's what John teaches. Yet it's so hard for us to understand because we just feel like, you know, we're just not worthy of that. I'm just not worthy of that kind of love. A lot of folks struggle with that. A lot of folks can't grasp that they're worthy. You know, there was an elderly lady who was dying. She was not doing well. She didn't have that much longer to live. And the pastor had gone to see her, and he was trying to explain to her how God loved her. And he can't love me because I've done so many terrible things in my life. I'm just not a good person. He said, it doesn't matter. He loves you. He loves you. She said, no, you don't understand. I've really done some things. I'm not a good person. I'm just not worthy of that love. And as the pastor struggled to try to, let her know that God did love her, he looked over on the table next to the bed, and he saw a picture of the grandmother and a little girl. And he said, well, who is this? He said, oh, that's my granddaughter. That's my granddaughter. Oh, I bet you love her. Oh, I love her. She makes my day bright no matter how bad it is. I can see just from the look in your eye that you love that girl. And she said, yes, I love her. She said, if she was bad, if she came in here and broke your vase, would you still love her? She said, of course. Of course. Well, what if she acted up? Had to be sent to her room? Would you still love her? Oh, I'd still love her. Of course. That's a silly question. Say, well, why is it so hard for you to comprehend that God could love you? Because he loves you just like you love that child. He knows you're going to be bad sometimes. You may break the vase. You may act out. We're going to have bad days. But God still loves you. That is hard to grasp. And it's hard to fathom. Folks, that's the message that John brings. That's the transformation that John made from being that angry man, ready to call down the fireballs, being the narrow-minded man, ready to exclude people who weren't that sort of ambitious guy who just wanted to be on top, to a guy who came and tells us about God's love. So much so that, like I said, you can't help but see 3:16 and think John 3:16, for God so loved the world. You know, tradition has it as John got older, he had been exiled to Ephesus. The disciples would carry him to church, to the gathering every Sunday, and he would preach every Sunday. And he would get there and he would say the same sermon, which was simply this: little children, love one another. And he would stop. And they would carry him back home. And each week people would show up. And each week people would be disappointed. They would be like looking for these great words from this great man. And they would hear, little children, love one another. And finally someone asked me, said, John said, you preach the same sermon every week and it's just those few words, little children, love one another. Why, John? Why? Why won't you give us more? To which he replied, because that's enough. That is enough. We are beloved. We are God's children. He doesn't ask us to die on a cross. He asks us to love one another. Some of us would rather die on a cross than love one another. It's easy to love those who love you back. But you're called to love them all. Little children, love one another. And all God's people say, Amen. Our hymn of response today,
2:14.